Hi, welcome to my presentation about my script. My idea is going to be about the Easter Uprising. It's an event that changed the political landscape for Ireland forever. The themes that I'm going to deal with just quickly are going to be like a lot about battle and triumph over adversity, but I'll talk a bit more about that later in more detail. Characters, there's going to be a number of characters, but they're going to be more background, not really speaking roles, just more there to be seen. They're going to be part of the Irish Republic, which I'll get more into details with. But the main two characters will be Patrick Pearse and James Connolly. These are the two leaders of the Irish Republic and the minds behind the uprising. The setting's going to be the Irish city of Dublin during the 1916 Irish uprising. Started planning in 1950 and executed 1916. The location is a postal office, the big postal office in Dublin City, and then it's also there's two locations. Secondary will be the halfway house, which is located across the road, which was used as an escape exit. I'll talk a bit more about that again later. So first I thought I'd talk about the story. The story, as I said, is based on the Irish Uprising, which is a group of people who, under the banner of the Irish Republic, they were called, decided that they were sick of the British regime controlling them, and during World War I they were being sent over to fight battles so they could free nations during World War I. Meanwhile, Ireland wasn't a free nation in itself. So during this, the Irish Republic decided that it would be best to try and take control back of Ireland with force, and that's what they tried to do with the help of the Germans during World War I. They set up a number of plans that would be taking over key strategic locations in Ireland and also weapons cache coming in from the Nazis. A lot of this actually never happened, though. It didn't all come under, and only one location was taken, mainly in Dublin, which was the postal office, which was sort of like the headquarters for the Irish Republic during that time. The story is going to revolve around basically the surrender that the British and the Irish agreed upon. They were held after the original incursion. The Irish Republic were held in the postal office, and they were trapped in there, and they were surrounded by the British. And this is going to be the story of them trapped in. That's where we're going to pick up the story. They're going to be trapped, and they're going to be trying to figure out what they can do. That's when they're going to start using their the escape plan, which they've got in play. This is where the tunneled into a secondary location, but when they reach that location, it's actually already been taken over by the police as well, the surrounding areas, so there's still no way out, so they're trapped, and then that's when the story becomes about how they can surrender or if they should fight on. It's really more of a personal story about two people, with opposing ideals trying to come to the same conclusion, set against the backdrop of the Irish Uprising during 1916. It's all going to be revolving around that and the surrender, and then what came after that, which of course was the uprising in Ireland, where it finalised into the Irish Republic becoming the Republic of Ireland. Themes in my film will revolve around battle and freedom. These are really two heavy themes, but these are the ones I chose to, sort of write my story with, because I feel like that's the best way to portray what actually happened during that. The Irish were feeling oppressed, they were feeling enslaved, and then they were being told that they had to go and fight a war to free the oppressed and the enslaved, and it was, it was against their will. They were almost being forced to go and fight battles that they did not have any hand in. Another main theme, would be triumph over adversity. That's what the main goal is for the Irish Republic. It is to have a free Ireland ruled by themselves and not by a British monarch. The idea itself came from me watching the UFC, actually, of all places. A UFC fighter came out to the Irish folk sang the Foggy Dew. Being of Irish descent, I'd never heard it before, so I thought I'd do some research on it, and that's when I sort of got more into the Easter Uprising itself, the story behind it, Patrick Pearse and James Connolly and that group of soldiers who decided that they'd had enough of being enslaved and decided to take a stand against it. And the idea sort of came about, it had a number of phases. One, which was, it was going to be sort of the leader of the Irish Republic and the leader of the British, and they were going to have a side-by-side conversation. That's what I originally started with, but the more I researched it, the more I got to understand that inside the Irish Republic there was two main focal figures. There was sort of like a president and a vice president of the Irish Republic, and I thought I'd focus on their story and say, well, what if they both didn't agree? You know, kind of similar to Malcolm X and Martin Luther King in terms that they both wanted the exact same thing, you know, freedom, but different ideals. You know, one wanted it through, you know, talking and a vision and coming to you know, an agreement with everybody that this is for the better of mankind. There was more of a take it and we'll get it. Well, that's how I originally got the idea. The film, it's not really a difficult one. It could either be done in a studio, you know, like we have on location at the Manchester College. We could do it there, or it could be on location, but it doesn't specifically have to be in Ireland, obviously, because it's just a postal office. So as long as we've just got a building that looks similar to, you know, a postal office, that's what we'd be able to use. The only trouble there would be, you know, maybe the background, you know, not looking like Ireland itself, because this will be in Dublin, so it's like right in the centre. But I don't feel like that would be too much of an issue, and so I could shoot either on location or in the studio, but I'd probably prefer to shoot in the studio. Then maybe I could use some sort of maybe green screen, or, you know, some kind of trick like that around maybe the windows, so we don't have to actually see outside. I'd film it. How I'd film it would be pretty standard practice. I won't go anything too fancy. Maybe during some scenes, like when the Irish Republic awake at the dawn, just before the raid, I wanted to have a really cold feel, you know, like impending doom's, you know, about to come, but it's a cold feel to, you know, the shoot, and that's what I want to do. I'd probably use lighting and maybe some kind of camera filters to sort of get that look. You know, I want it to be cold, but I want it to be practical as well. I don't want it all to just be visual effects in post. I like to get, you know, myself, you know, physical lights in there, producing that light. That's where you can see the most realistic visions, in my opinion. Some scenes there's going to be bursts of light, you know, for instance, during the finale, as the British raid the Irish after the surrender. As the doors will get flung open, kicked in, and the British will raid the Irish after the Irish do surrender. And in this scene, I wanted it to be almost like a blinding light. And again, I'd rather do that practical and effects. So maybe I'd get, you know, really powerful light, maybe like a 5K or something, just blast it straight at, you know, a door frame, and then just have these figures coming in. Like, you can't see the faces, just be figures. The inspiration for doing this story again came from the song and also my heritage, because obviously I'm half Irish, so that's where I'd want, you know, more talk about the soldiers who, you know, gave their life for freedom for Ireland. A lot of people died, both sides. A lot of people died, and not a lot of people know the story of the Irish uprising. It's not really a big thing, it's sort of like overlooked, but a lot of people died, both civilians and soldiers died fighting for freedom. The challenges, as I've already said, would probably be shooting the location, shooting in Dublin, but I think I'd get around that by just maybe in the studio with the green screen. I could do that, or I could even just use the same technique, blind all the lights out pretty much, then just have, you know, the angles shot down so you can't really see straight out the window. But I feel like that's how I'd get out of it. And with the actors, I feel like that could be difficult, because I think I'd want, you know, more Irish actors than anything else, because I don't really want an English guy trying to do an Irish accent. It's coming off really terrible. That's probably the main challenge I'll be getting, would be getting that authenticity to the shoot. Just before I go into the questions, I just want to go back over the story, because I don't feel like I really, you know, got into too much detail. That's why I'm going to do this now. Basically, we're going to have the story will start at the Irish Republic are in the postal office. They're discussing, you know, the fact that they're surrounded and what are they going to do. And then there's also, during this point, the British do send in nurses to help treat the wounded, because this is their last point, so the British are trying to do everything they can. So, well, after this, we're going to go to a secondary location, which will be a flashback. I'm going to show this pretty clear I'm just going to almost just put it on the screen itself. But the flashback won't be a too long one. It's just basically, it'll be the group in the Irish. The secondary location will be in a bar, in the back room of a bar, and they're just basically going to be talking about how the uprising will take place. It's going to be the planning stage of the uprising. It's going to be probably the most important. This is going to be the exposition. It's going to be telling you why. It's going to be telling you how they did it. And then after that, we're going to go into a few more scenes, but effectively we're going to come all the way back to them tunneling out into their secondary location. The secondary location is a halfway house, and that halfway house is free of British control, but it is surrounded still. So there is nowhere they can go, there is nowhere they can leave. And this is where it really starts coming into play that the only option is surrender. And a few scenes after that, they're still arguing about it, but there becomes an overriding sense that the only way out is surrender. This is a theory implemented early on by James Connolly, who is the second in command, one of the second in commanders. James Connolly and Patrick Pearce are both pretty much at the same level, but the one is for fighting and never giving up, and the other one, once he sees that there is nothing they can do, they will all die. That's when he decides that surrender is the best option, and they do eventually come to terms with that. Then there's going to be a really important scene I feel that needs to be put in there, which is after the surrender note is given out to a nurse who then takes it, she is sent on behalf of the British again. She gets the surrender note, which is then delivered to the British. I'm not going to see any of that. I don't want to focus on the British. It's just the Irish. As I said, it's a pretty intimate story. I want a scene of the Irish Republic all sort of, even though they know that in the morning it's all going to be over, everything's done. I don't want them to be sad, I want them to be happy, like the fighting Irish spirit, Then we have the scene of them getting raided in the halfway house. Then after this, it's going to cut to a scene of the British military generals. We're not going to see them, it's all going to be black faces, the light's going to be dim, you're not going to see anyone's face, any features, just the British military attire, so you can really see them stand out and the accents. After this, during this conversation, you hear them talk about what can they do, and then slowly it sort of devolves into how best to kill them. There's never really any sort of democracy, or it's just death. They must die, for what they've done against the British. They're considered traitors. Then the scene comes where each individual member of the Irish Republic gets dressed for firing squad. This is where they get sent to by the British in the previous scene. They are all sent. They come to the conclusion that they all must be sent to firing squad. During this scene here, the note that is left, the note that is sent out for the surrender will be read aloud. This is going to be a really poignant scene. It's going to be them being taken to their death, but still the note will talk about how Ireland is changed forever and how it can't ever be the same. There will be change, and it will be coming really quick. And I feel like it's going to be really important because it's going to be a really poignant scene where you're going to feel everything. All the characters will be taken out individually, and you will see them placed in front of the firing squad. And then we're going to get to James Connolly and Patrick Pearce, and this is who it's going to finish on. We're going to see the masks taken on and then taken out to the firing squad. And then as the bullets will get fired, that's when the scene will end and the story will also come to an end, and that'll be the story finished. Just try to go back over that. So I'm trying to open up to any questions, if anyone has any questions.
How long is this film going to be? Sounds quite a lot's going on.
Yeah, it sounds like a lot's going on. Maybe that's just me not really explaining it too well, but it's going to be about 8 to 9 minutes. There's only really 2 locations in the present and then 1 flashback scene. That's it. It's not really over the top. 2 locations, around about 8 different scenes altogether, encompassing that, maybe 9 scenes. I don't see it going past 10 minutes.
So you say this is 1914, 15, is it 16?
1916.
So are you filming black and white, so use colour?
No, I'm just going to use colour. I've not really thought about shooting in black and white. I do want to use colour though, because I want to show the Irish flag, which is the Irish flag being raised over the postal office was a really, pivotal moment for the Irish rebellion.
Are they going to be carrying weapons in this film?
Yeah, there'll be weapons. There will be.
Do you think that will raise issues, maybe, carrying weapons on the streets? When you film it?
Yeah, well, that depends on where we shoot. If it's the studio, then obviously I'll still have to get permission from, the university itself, the campus, the estates, and then I'll also inform the police. This is just standard practice. This is what I do if we was in the studio, if we was on the streets. Make sure you always inform the authorities, and then let them know, and let my first AD know as well. And then, I don't feel like anything else would be a problem from that now.
What involvement in the actual production would you want to be doing? Would you want to direct this?
If this was to be made, then yeah, I would want to direct it. I feel like of all the research I've done, I feel like I've got a pretty good detail about what it is, and then also, I feel, not connected. Obviously, it don't really have anything to do with it, but the fact that I'm Irish, I've got more, I feel more for the Irish soldiers in it than, I feel like some people would if they weren't. I'm not saying that, someone can't direct it or not, but.
Do you think you say you're Irish, do you think you'll be slightly biased towards the Irish and the British and just not
well, I
consider
feel all films, a lot of films do have a bias. You look at most war films, regarding Vietnam, it's always the British, it's always the Americans, I apologise, it's always the Americans who are painted to be the good guys, never the Vietnamese. And there is an argument to state that it was the Americans who invaded Vietnam, so I feel like there is always going to be bias in films, and I don't feel like I'm going to have any sort of personal bias that oversways anything. But I do get what you mean. There will be some sort of bias just from the way the script is written towards the Irish.
So what you're saying is this basically the two main people out there fighting?
Yeah, it's
so the war between like,
the war is more of a backdrop. Yeah, it's going to be an intimate telling between two soldiers who thought they had the same ideals, but when it comes down to it, they realise that they don't. They still want the same thing, but they both want to get it in completely different fashions. So
would this be a dialogue-heavy sort of film? That's like dialogue would be getting the point over more than action would, in a sense.
Yeah, there's not really a lot of action. There's no real fighting. There's no real war. It is 100% pretty much dialogue-driven. There's not a lot of war fighting actually going on. That's because the Irish know that they've been, surrounded. There's nothing they can do. The fight, the way out sort of does come up, but there's no actual war. It's all dialogue based. Yeah.